time. I've been preparing this segment for a while now, and I'm going to try and make it fairly shorter than I think I could really make it. Okay, we're going to talk about Hollywood over budgeting movies. Why over budgeting? Inflated movie budgets is killing Hollywood. I'm going to hit you with. I'm going to try and make this not too statistical based and too numbers based, but I'm going to have to spout some figures to you. Okay, so I'm going to hit you with this startling figure. For movies considered the biggest box office bombs, from 1964 to 2000, it's a big gap, about 40 years, there were 26 movies deemed catastrophic or just significantly underperforming in theaters, okay? From 2000 to present day 2017, there have been 85 movies that have lost anywhere between $60 million and over $100 million. These movies have caused studios to close, studios to mortgage their futures, and studios to drastically revamp plans for new alternative routes. This is not good, okay? Last year, 2016, we saw 12 movies significantly underperform and lose studios over almost $1 billion. These are movies like Live by Night, the Ben Affleck drama. These are movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, The Finest Hours, The BFG, Alice Through the Looking Glass. This year, we've had 2 movies significantly underperform. We've had Ghost in the Shell against a production budget of $110 million. It made $169 million. Might not seem like a loss, but that was easily a $200 million production. And then we had King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, which ballooned with reshoots up to $175 million production budget and grossed $137 million. Couple other significant bombs the last couple years. Deepwater Horizon cost $120 million to make. That's the Mark Wahlberg oil rig drama. It made Monster Trucks, this is a good one, cost $125 million to make. It made $64 million. And finally, the Ryan Reynolds, Jeff Bridges forgotten sci-fi action hybrid RIPD cost $140 million to make and made $78 million. Figures. Now, keep in mind, too, Monster Trucks, RIPD, and King Arthur all had franchise potential. They were incredibly expensive movies to make, okay? But because the studio wasn't intending on making one good movie, they were trying to make a hugely expensive, gotta take off to lift up the potential franchise tentpole movie. They successfully wound up mortgaging their future. It increased a budget that could have really remained small and workable, and instead made one of the worst bombs in history. Here's one thing I think is very funny, okay? Peter Pan came out in 2003, okay? It was a big budget Peter Pan movie. In 2003, this movie cost $130 million to make. It made $122 million worldwide. It was a bomb. You got to understand, too, when I say a movie it cost $130 million to make and made $122, that's not just a financial loss of $8 million. This is a financial loss of probably $70, $80 million, because what's not factored into all these budgets is production, commercials, billboards, online advertising, so on and so forth. These are not factored in. And these can often be just as expensive as the movie made, okay? Super Bowl spots aren't cheap. Prolific commercials and YouTube ads are not cheap. Banner ads on websites add up. There's a ton that goes into movie marketing. Back to Peter Pan, though. So after losing probably about $80 million on this 2003 Peter Pan movie, what do they do 12 years later? They make a movie called Pan in 2015. You might remember it. And they balloon the budget up to $150 million. You know how much that Pan movie made? $128 million. It was one of the 10 biggest bombs of 2015. The commonality between all these movies that I'm listing and many more that I'm not listing, okay? These movies could have probably taken a third off of their budget. Look at Monster Trucks, okay? A goofy, very good, I argue very good, very silly, effervescent kid movie, okay? Cost $125 million to make. Keep in mind, Monster Trucks was not an established franchise. It was not a TV show. It was not a graphic novel. It was not a Cartoon Network series. It was not a toy line. It was a new, fresh property. At $125 million and several theatrical movie delays in North America, this thing had to make about $250 million to even be profitable. It barely made $60 million worldwide during a notoriously slow movie month of January. Look at King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Originally about a $90 million budget movie. Still would have underperformed if it had been $90 million, but they would not have nearly been in the red. Now, with reshoots, a couple cash changes, so on and so forth, a lot of production behind the scenes meltdown, the budget ballooned up to $175 million. The film didn't even come close to touching that. How bad was that original movie that it had to almost double its production value budget and kill the end product? This is what I'm talking about here, is that these movies, Hollywood gets too obsessed with finding the next franchise potential. They throw 9-figure budgets to these movies and they cut in and sever their own profit margin. This is serious, and this is almost debatably an unsustainable business practice. It's very dangerous, especially when you get a theatrical movie going public that is allowing the almost monopolistic reign of Disney and Marvel movies to continue to make hundreds of million dollars at the box office, while even neglecting movies like the new Transformers, even War for the Planet of the Apes that Dominic and I talked about last hour or in the 12 o'clock hour. That's not making the money that it was projected to. It'll still do well, but it's not even close to on the trajectory that Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was on to. So this is dangerous. Again, last year, I'm going to run through all the movies really quick that lost anywhere between $60 and $100 million. Alice Through the Looking Glass. Allied, that's the Brad Pitt, Marion Cotillard drama. The remake of Ben-Hur, the BFG, Deepwater Horizon, The Finest Hours, Ghostbusters, the remake, Gods of Egypt, The Huntsman Winter's War, Live by Night, Monster Trucks, technically was a 2016 production, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. All these movies bombed catastrophically, and just as many, if not more, in 2015. Only one in 2014 really took quite a bit of a loss. That was the barely related sequel to Wizard of Oz called Legends of Oz: Dorothy's Return. Yes, they made an all-animated sequel to Wizard of Oz. 2013 saw quite a bit, probably about the same, about 7 or 8. 2012 saw a couple. 2011 saw quite a few, probably about 8 or 9. This cannot continue. And it's not the moviegoers' fault. I sometimes harp on moviegoers. I got to be honest. I sometimes harp on moviegoers by saying, you know what? You guys demand movies like Queen of Katwe be made. These diverse movies that tell the different stories of people of color and so on and so forth. But that doesn't happen. And that doesn't happen often. So when these movies come out, you need to support them. I harp on moviegoers for not supporting movies that they demand. Okay, I give it that. But I'm also going to say right now that you got no obligation to see these movies. You got no obligation to really see any movie, even though I sometimes say it. But right now, we're at a crossroads where Hollywood is spending so much money on movies at a time when stay-at-home entertainment like Netflix, the content on AMC and HBO, is very tempting and rivals the works that studios make. That's the incredible thing right now. And that's the thing that's going to keep continuing. That's the new trend right now, is people staying home, avoiding the multiplexes. I've said it before. Why lament the lack of strong female leads in movies when you can stay at home, watch Walking Dead, watch Supergirl, watch Winona Earp, watch a ton of entertainment at your fingertips and such? Why go see the crappy new King Arthur movie that's trying to start a franchise franchise with a no-name actor at the core when you could rewatch Game of Thrones? Hell, Game of Thrones just started. Why would you even go rent King Arthur when it comes to DVD in a couple months? So, and even you're looking at too, like Deepwater Horizon. That's a $120 million movie. I got news for you. That movie's marketed to an older demographic, the demographic that doesn't rush out to see movies in the theater. Your father will catch that movie when it comes on USA Network or TNT. Again, movie making has gotten incredibly expensive in the last few years. I'm not saying I could do it better than the average producer. I'm not. I would never say that. Just like I've never said before that I could make a better film than a director who's already made a film, even as bad as it is. I'm not going to say that. Am I over here making a film? No. I'm not a pompous critic like that. I'm not sitting. I can do that better. I could do that with half the budget and be something as good. I'm not trying to be like that. I fully admit that I could not do that. A lot of people get critics a bad rep for saying that, oh, how can you critique something and you've never made a movie? Well, can you know what I mean? Have you ever been president? Well, you really can't criticize the work of our current president. I'll leave that at that, though. But anyway, so again, there's obviously, these are extreme cases I'm talking about too. These are movies that have lost millions and millions of dollars. Plenty of movies come out any given year that either, lose a studio a couple $1 million here and there, whatever, can be considered a write-off, especially when the next movie comes out. But then you can look at a movie like The Legend of Tarzan, okay, that came out last year. If that movie cost $90 million to make, half of its production budget at $180 million, its worldwide gross of $356.7 million would seem like a big success. Again, its budget was over $200 million with marketing. It didn't make much, if any, money for the studio. And that's the case now. It's a dangerous case when movies are not making as much money as they need to in order to succeed or cover their production cost. I laughed a little bit when Batman vs. Superman came out. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I laughed when people said that the $800 million that movie took in was a little bit disappointing. I said, if a movie can make $800 million and still be considered underwhelming, the problem is in Hollywood accounting. It's not a problem of the movie itself or the people or the box office or the movie going public. Well, really, that's kind of where we're at right now. It's really the problem of Hollywood spending way too much money too often. It'd be different if we got one of these catastrophic bombs, maybe 3, even 4 times a year. That wouldn't be reason to sound the alarms. But really, when movies are doing this bad, this regularly, the problem is the public. The problem might not even be the source material in a lot of these cases. The problem is that Hollywood spends too much money. Again, the production costs of movies has gotten more expensive. Technology's gotten more expensive. Actors are not getting cheaper. They want to hire the best directors. They want to hire marquee names. They really want to make a movie that can be communicable. But when you're spending $175 million on a movie helmed by Guy Ritchie, where your biggest names are Charlie Hunnam and Jude Law in a very minor supporting role. I'm talking King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Are you really, really banking on success, or are you living on a prayer? That's my question I pose.